What's up, guys? Welcome back to JSig Poker, where I give you guys my tips and strategies to help you get better at Pot Limit Omaha, 4-card, 5-card, 6-card. If you guys want to play in a fun club, then hit me up on Instagram at Acoustic Shredder and I'll get you in. There's games running all day, from low stakes to high stakes, mainly high VPIP games and 4-card, 5-card, 6-card PLO. They also got no limit on there if you guys want to play. But this is my strategy, how I'm winning in these high VPIP games. And this is going to be a very, very good basic strategy on how you guys can do this too at VPIP clubs or loose private home games. And I'm sure you guys have all wondered how to play in these or if they're even profitable with the VPIP requirement. And I can tell you 100% these are profitable. And that's because the majority of these players are playing well above 50 to 70% of their hands. So as long as you stay slightly above that VPIP requirement and use this strategy I'm about to give you, then you should make money. I'm actually up about $500 this week and have barely played. But let's just get into it. So here's the basic strategy. Number one, of course, the first thing you have to make sure is to always pay attention to your VPIP. Make sure if the requirement is above 40%, then try to stay around that 43 to 45 range. That way you avoid having to put in a lot of money with super weak hands if you get all the way down to that 40% VPIP. So number two, pre-flop, you're going to generally only want to play 10s plus with good suits and connectivity from all positions. And that's because a lot of people will play lower pairs, especially in 5-card, 6-card PLO. And you'll be able to dominate them when you do flop top set. Number three, only play nut suits with decent connectivity or high connected suits. So avoid playing hands out of position or from early position like Jack 7, 8, 9, 6, King, Queen, Jack 8, 7. I know it's really tempting to play these from early position, but guys, this is only going to get you in a lot of trouble. Only play these if you're in late position, like the cutoff or button, or if you're the first player to race first in. Because, again, these are going to get you in trouble when you're out of position multi-way. You're going to be up against a lot of hands that dominate you, like pocket jacks, like pocket kings, like pocket aces. But having a nut suit in your hand will make your life so much easier because if you do flop a draw, you're going to most likely be drawing to the nuts. Number four, avoid calling big 3-bets or 4-bets with weaker holdings, especially out of position, and if it's only 2 to 3 ways. If it's a ton of people in the hand and you have a decent hand like we just went over, and it's a 3-bet pot, and you're getting really good odds, sure, you can definitely call. But be cautious when playing post-flop. Because, again, you're going to be dominated by a lot of hands. Only call 3-bets if you're getting really good odds. Now, the basic pre-flop strategy, let's get into it, of what hands you can properly play pre-flop. As for pairs, like I said, only 10s plus connected. Jacks definitely are going to be good here, especially from early position. If you're in position and race first in, then you can mix in some well-connected hands like 10, 10, 8, 9, 10, 10, Jack 7. And obviously, if you have the 10, 10 with nut suit, you got to play that. Like hands like Ace, 10, 10, 5 single suited. You're especially going to have trouble playing weaker 10s in 5-card, so just try to avoid that altogether. But these are some hands you would typically fold from early position, out of position, that you would play in high VPIP or loose private home games. So first thing first, Jack, Jack 8, 4 single suited. In a normal game, you would probably fold this out of position, early position, or in a lot of positions. But in a high VPIP game, you're going to want to VPIP this. Number two, King, King 4, 3 single suited. Again, with the low 4-3, just a pretty bad hand from early position, doesn't play very well. But again, in a high VPIP game where people are playing lower pairs, you're going to want to come in with this. Queen, Queen 5-9 single suited is another example. right? Having the 5-9 gap is pretty bad, but again, having the pocket queens with the suit is going to be good enough here. As for the nut suits, hands like ace 9, 5, 6 from early position generally would be a fold just because of the gap. Now, because of the nut suit and decent connectivity, you're going to want to come in. Another hand like ace 8, 4, 8 single suited. Again, with the gap 4-8, not a great hand, but with the nut suit and pair and decent connectivity, you're going to want to VPIP this hand. Another hand like ace-jack 8-4 single suited, this can be a hand you can limp in if you're getting very, very close to hitting that VPIP requirement. Now, give me 1 second here. Of course, if you guys are going to be in later position, like cutoff, button, hijack, you're definitely going to want to come in with these types of holdings. And I would suggest just coming in for a raise and being aggressive. But let's get to the first example where you can implement some of these strategies. Hand example number 1. Let's say we're playing 5 card and under the gun opens pot. And we're under the gun +1 with queen, queen, jack 5 single suited. In a normal 8-handed game, this would be pretty close to a fold, especially versus under the gun range, and then being out of position versus a bunch of other players, just because we could potentially be phasing squeezes or, aggressive players. Now, give me 1 second here. Now, with the VPIP requirement, we're definitely going to want to call this hand. So let's say we do call, a bunch of other players call, so it's 6 ways to a flop, and it comes jack 8-4 rainbow. I love check raising here because that way we avoid being out of position versus 4 other players in a bloated pot, right? Let's say it comes 7, 9, 10, queen, and you complain it's a straight. We're going to be in a tough position here. If we check, we give other players an opportunity to pot worse sets, like pocket 8s, pocket 4s, even two pairs that we completely dominate. So let's say we check middle position pots, it folds to us, and of course we're just going to rejam and get it in here. That's the best play. And he decides to call. He ends up showing jack 8, 9, 10, king. 2 pair with an open-ended. So we actually have him dominated, and his only live outs are his open-ended outs, which we block with our 7 and queen. So we're looking really golden here. We're a very, very good sizable favorite, at least 2-1 here. The turn comes a 4, and we have him drawing dead and win a nice sizable pot. So that's just one example of how we can dominate worse hands. But let's get to the second example, where we can dominate other hands with the nut suit this time. So let's say it folds to us and we have a VPIP of 42 with the VPIP requirement of 40. We look down at ace 9, 8, 5, 3 single suited with the nut suit. Now typically with the 3 in our hand, pretty bad hand with the disconnectedness, but with that nut suit, I like getting involved here. So I like coming in for a raise here or a limp if people are 3-betting you aggressively. Let's say the button 3 bets, the small blind and big blind both cold call. Now we have a mandatory call completing the action, getting good odds. The flop comes jack 5-4, 2 hearts. It checks around and we check to the button who's always c-bet every time he's 3-bet. Now he decides to go ahead and pot. We're loving this because we have mid pair with the gut shot with a bunch of 2 pair outs and the nut flush draw. We're pretty much live versus any hand. It folds to us, and this is a good enough hand to go all in with to try and realize our equity, as we can get it in with potential worse hands like over pairs with hearts. So we go ahead and pot, and he calls, and he shows ace, king, king, queen 10 with king high hearts. We're the favorite here since we're dominating his flush draw, plus we have every 2 pair outs, a 5, an ace, and straight outs. I don't like his pot here because, again, he could be up against nut flush draws and just not be good. We're going to be probably close to a 65 to 35 to 70 to 30% favorite. The turn comes a deuce of diamonds, and we have him drawing dead. This hand just shows why it's so dangerous to bet get it in without the nut flush draw and just 1 pair. So just don't do that. Now let's get to the third example. Let's say we're playing in a wild home game where players are raising and 3-betting like crazy. We're under the gun with ace 5 9 10 single suited. In a normal full ring game with good players, you can argue to fold this hand, but in a game where the other players are playing a lot of weaker suits pre-flop plus not playing well post-flop, this is going to be a profitable limp. Plus, we don't want to look like a nit and not get invited back, so we limp in for $5. Under the gun +1 immediately pots. We get 6 other callers, and of course we're going to call. The flop comes Jack 8 5 2 clubs. We have bottom pair open-ended plus the nut flush draw. Small blind, who's been shown to lead pot with weaker holdings, leads pot, and we only have a few $100 left, so we decide to rejam to hopefully realize our equity and be up against potentially weaker hands, or even hands that we're a favor against, like 2 pair, Jack 8. It folds to him, and he calls it off with King, Queen, 10, 10 with clubs, a gut shot with Queen high flush draw. We are once again a very, very good favorite because we can hit an ace, club, 7, queen, or 5 and be good. We're going to be at more than a 2-to-1 favorite here. The turn comes a 7 of diamonds and the river a deuce of clubs. We scoop a beautiful pot after exploiting the other player's poor post-flop tendencies. Now, just because we're required to stay above a certain VPIP doesn't mean we have to call raises or big 3-bets pre-flop, especially if we limp in. If we're card dead and have to VPIP there we can, that's fine. But don't call raises because it's just going to get you in trouble after the flop. If you're in late position and have a hand like King Jack 10 9 7 single suited and VPIP is getting low, then feel free to call with those hands if they're at least connected and higher up with good suits. But everything else, guys, beyond that, just fold. Again, it's going to get you in a ton of trouble post-flop. You're going to get reverse implied odds a lot of the time because you're up against a lot of higher suits. Just make your life easy and get in there with the nut suits, highest connected strong suits or higher pairs. Again, usually 10s plus. But let's get to the next example where we can exploit our opponent's tendencies here. Now, let's say early position opens a bunch of callers and we're on middle position with King, Jack, 9, 10, 7 single suited to the king. Really, versus early position, and if without any callers, this can easily be a fold. But with all the callers and VPIP requirement, we got to make the call here. Everything's connected. We got a king high suit. We can hit a bunch of good hands after the flop. That's going to make our life easy. So let's say the big blind calls and we see a flop, and the flop comes King, Jack, 8 rainbow. We flop a monster, top 2 with the wrap and a backdoor flush draw. Plus we block pocket kings, pocket jacks. Early position, who's been seen opening weak hands and potting flops with weaker hands, goes ahead and pots again. And guys, with our top 2 with the wrap, this is just an easy repot as we can get it in versus King Jack without a redraw, or even hands like Queen Jack 9 10 2. Lower wraps with lower pairs, which we're dominating. We pot and he rejams, we call and he shows up with King, Queen, Jack 8 4, 3 pair without any redraw. Okay, the only hand he can hit is an 8, which would be very unlucky, but we're in amazing shape here. The turn comes a 7, which gives us the nuts, and the river a 2. Again, we scoop a very nice pot, exploiting our opponent's poor post-flop tendencies. He should definitely just be looking to check call here, as there's really no good turns for him. Only a King Jack 8, but every other card that comes is going to be bad for his hand. So I do like a check in his position. Now let's get to another example where we can properly play pocket 10s pre-flop in 5 card. Let's say under the gun opens, there's a bunch of colors, and we're on the button with King 10 10 6 4 suited to the king. Not the greatest hand, but having a weaker pair of 10s, plus having the second nut suit, plus it all being connected and having position on a bunch of players who are probably playing worse pairs, plus the VPIP requirement does make this a profitable call, you guys. So we call the small blind and big blind calls, so it's a family pot, and the flop comes 10-5-3 with 2 clubs. We flop top set with an open-ended straight draw. Under the gun pots, it folds to us, and being deep in position with top set plus having the open-ended, I love repotting here. Under the gun repots, and we get it in for a massive $1,000 big blind pot, and he shows ace 3-3-5 with clubs. Bottom set with the club draw, nut flush draw. Now, we're going to be a 2-1 favorite because he's only drawn to a 3 or a club or running aces. The turn comes a jack and the river a deuce of clubs. Unfortunately, he does make his nut flush. But again, guys, we're getting it 2-1 favorite. In 5 card, that's pretty much how it's going to be a lot of the time if you do get it in as a sizable favorite. It's not like no limit hold'em. But in conclusion, guys, number 1, try to stay slightly above the required VPIP. That way you don't have to call such big races pre with such weak hands. And if you're in a home game, don't knit it up pre-flop, or else nobody's going to like you and you're not going to get invited back. Number 2, only play strong 10s plus. That way you have the best chance of flopping top set and dominating other hands. An exception to playing lower pairs like 8s or 9s is if it gets folded to you and you're in late position and everything's connected. Like hands like 7, 7, 8, 9, 10, 9, 9, 10, jack, queen, 8, 8, 9, 10, king, or sorry, 8, 8, 9, 10, yeah. Now, number 3, only play strong connected king high suits or weaker suits if it's all connected. This is going to give you the best chance at dominating weaker flushes, flush draws, or weaker 2 pairs. Of course, make sure to play those nut suits. Now that you've gotten the basic strategy on how to play in VPIP games, go ahead and test it in our club or the Club GG app. There's tons of players with high VPIPs, 70 plus, that consistently get it in with weaker hands. So I'm sure you can make some money there. And if you want to play, hit me up on Instagram at Acoustic Shredder. Name is in the description. And if you guys like this video, hit the like and subscribe button, because on the next video, I'm going to be coming out with how to 3-bet pre-flop in 5 card and when to do it. It's going to help you guys out a lot, especially versus different players. But until the next video, good luck at the tables and peace out, you guys. See you on the next one.